Who knows what could happen? You could be turning dark horses into greedy mice, or even create another evil empire. You would be messing with the fabric of space and time. The past, the present and the future, everything could turn upside down without logic or reason. With that line, I basically fix it all. If you want to see the movie first, the link is in the description. Yeah, I gave up and put it on YouTube after all. It's been 6 months, nothing is happening over there. Anyway, I have to thank Mauler for listing everything wrong with the sequels. I could have done with shorter videos though. Well, someone let him know that I fixed almost everything he's complained about. A few smaller things like why bombers and not Y-wings or all the minor conveniences I didn't want to fix, because the without logic or reason line covers all the nonsense more or less. Rey though, I fix in detail. Luke somewhat, though he's dead now, but I do have a way to bring him back set up. I'm against it though, consequences and all. The sequel trilogy is bad, I'm not denying that. I just believe deleting it from canon will hurt Star Wars more in the long run, so I decided to make a movie and fix it my own self. Let's start with the obvious. Putting Anakin's life force into the little girl already explains a lot. Like, why is there no Anakin Force Ghost in the sequel anywhere?
Where are they?
It explains why she was a great pilot from the get-go and why she is so great at repairing stuff. Because Anakin was also great at these things. Makes it kinda obvious, don't you think? It's also why she can swim even though she's from a desert planet, and why she understands Wookiee. Just like in the Harald Töpfer series, where the main character could also talk serpent because he was part of Amon Güth. Anyway, her kindness and willingness to help people also comes from Anakin, because in my movie she turned out to be a real connoisseur of the arts. So all this perfectness isn't her. The scene with the door in Force Awakens, where she saved Finn and didn't take credit, for example. Just like when she was flying, she just did it subconsciously, without having any control over it. To her it really was lucky, and that's why she didn't take credit. She only starts using the Force consciously once she touched the lightsaber, which was calling to her.
That lightsaber was Luke's, and his father's before him, and now it calls to you.
Maz was given the lightsaber in my movie with the explicit instruction to keep it safe for a little girl about 10 years ago. She couldn't give it to Han or Leia because they were clearly too old. That's why she cared so much about Rey getting it. Remember Obi-Wan saying,
This weapon is your life.
Turns out there's more to that than we thought. Many were upset when she touched the saber at the end of Awakens and downloaded the Force into her, but that wasn't that far off. It's like a less spacey wizard once said,
Fingers would remember their own strength better if they grasped your sword.
Oh, and since we are talking sword, Rey's holding it backwards just like Ahsoka and Starkiller, Anakin's students. She's obviously not a student, but more of a copy. A refill, so to speak. That's why she saw multiple Reys in the mirror in Last Jedi. But when she touches it, wanting to see her parents, she saw the person responsible for her current state. Herself. She trusted the wrong people, which ultimately led to her death and then being revived with the purpose of someone else. Rey herself is nobody, and that is her flaw. She has no motivation. She has no goal of her own. She literally is just being used without knowing it, which, even while being a connoisseur of the arts, makes her current existence kinda tragic. Just saying. Yes, this is going somewhere. She is in fact more powerful than Anakin though, because her limbs are still intact and that's why she has a higher midichlorian count. Oh yes, we are doing midichlorians. It's part of the lore and we work with what we have. But don't get your panties in a bunch. It's still Anakin inside her, so it's in fact him killing the Emperor again, setting things right. Even Luke said it. He saw that kind of strength before in Ben Solo. Because he's Anakin's grandson. See how this all fits effortlessly? But let's go even further. I heard that Palpatine was actually the one who created Anakin, and now his essence is in Rey. Wouldn't that make him the grandfather kinda? Or do you really think the Emperor had children? Oh, this is more like a Darla Angel Drew situation. Mauler will know what I'm talking about. Rey obviously doesn't know, even though she called herself Skywalker at the end. It's understandable since she feels like one, with Anakin's essence inside her and all, but overall she seems pretty clueless. Hope she doesn't find out she's being used, but that's a story for a higher budget. Instead, let's focus on my boy Luke. Explaining his weirdness in episode 8 and then his complete turnaround in 9 is not as obvious as his father's transgender possession business. The Force is not a power you have. It's the energy between all things, the tension that binds the universe together, his words. To say that if the Jedi die, the light dies is vanity. Sounds like he has talked to the orange lady from my movie. Anyway, Luke started feeling the darkness rise in Ben Solo when Rey was reborn with Anakin's powers. But he thought that Ben turned evil just like that, when in fact it was the ripple effect of pulling Anakin's essence out of the cosmic and pushing it back into the living Force. It was not darkness that rose and light to meet it, but light was pulled from the cosmic force, and so darkness followed. Or as Palpatine said in episode 9, a diet in the Force, Ben and Rey. He called it
a power like life itself.
Get it? Life itself? As in Anakin's life force? Seriously, I wrote my movie in 2018. I have receipts. Luke, being a strong Force wielder, even though he didn't understand it, knew that there was something terribly wrong. And with the Force being in a state of imbalance, it tries to correct Anakin's essence being back by leaning more to the dark side, which makes it harder for Force users to resist it. That's why Luke had a moment of weakness. He didn't act on, I might add.
I'll never turn to the dark side.
And that's why he closed himself off from the Force, because the dark side was getting stronger continuously. So strong that not even he could fight it forever, which we can see when he let it back into his life. Like, the next day he wants to start the book burning already. And trust me, that's never a good sign. But Luke, being as strong as he is, stops himself from that as well. Good boy. Then when he reconnected to it while doing his astral projection stunt, he heard the will of the Force again, which told him there must be balance. So he was trying to take his father's place by disappearing into the cosmic force, because he didn't want to kill Ben, and definitely not Rey. Once Luke is a Force ghost, he suddenly is his old self again. The fight with the dark side is over. He only had to go through it again because the Force wants to get where everything was before Rey was reborn. So it's running through the same motions, just bigger. Just look at episode 7. It's like a remake trying to overcompensate for not having original ideas. We have a Millennium Falcon versus TIE Fighter scene, just like in 4. Han is being remembered as a smuggler and not as a war hero, as if 5 and 6 never happened. Oh, and this time he owes everyone and not just Jabba. He isn't even in possession of his ship and has to get it from a black man and his feminist icon. And since he is the father figure this time, he has to be killed by a not run-of-the-mill red lightsaber. There has to be a Death Star, of course, but 12 times bigger, and it has to require not just the Jedi lightsaber crystals, but also Force magic to work, so everyone can see the pretty lights. Which everybody deems as normal, because nobody knows that the whole world is upside down and the Force is trying to repair itself. Then in 8, again a chase, but this time more and bigger ships. Less asteroids though. Yoda being weird to Luke again, as if it was the first time they've met. We have the betrayal and then a black man defying authority with the help of his bald friend. And finally in 9 it turns out that the Emperor is still alive, so Anakin can kill him again and things can go back to where they were at 6. The Force almost managed to do it too. The mentor figures are both dead, and only one visits Rey as a Force ghost before the big showdown, where the hero killed Palpatine with the help of someone with the same powers, who turned back from the dark side and then dies in the process. Well, more or less. So the evil empire was destroyed, and with Rey's death everything might have gone back to normal, but then Kylo had to revive her. Anyway, because of what happened in my movie, the Force in the sequel trilogy is completely out of whack. That's why there are so many inconsistencies, like people being able to see the laser of Starkiller Base. The rules are all over the place. Why do you think Leia can use the Force now and doesn't die in space? Why Force ghosts can touch things all of a sudden? Oh, and summon lightning. Also weird stuff like the Emperor conjuring hundreds of Star Destroyers out of the ground. Or the Holdo maneuver, 1,000,000-to-1 shot, being a success. Talking about Holdo, her not revealing the plan is just because of insecurities and has nothing to do with the Force being imbalanced. I actually observed that behavior in real people, so trust me, they exist. Even Holdo, then telling Leia that she likes Poe, makes perfect sense. By the way, people with unresolved emotional issues should not have leadership positions. All I can say about that. Also, Snoke telling Kylo to remove his helmet wasn't that weird if you look at it logically. As long as Kylo did his job, Snoke didn't mind the Vader cosplay. But once Rey beat Kylo, the dress code was back on. There was nothing to fix for me there. By the way, I put the past, present, future line in there to also explain the things not matching between the original trilogy and the prequels, like Obi-Wan saying he hasn't gone by that name before Luke was born, or that he met Anakin when he was already a young pilot. Both not completely accurate. I also find it unlikely that infant Leia can remember her mother being sad. If you want, you can chalk up Disney pushing wokeness into the original trilogy and the horrible Lego holiday special, messing with everything, to being the consequences of what happened in my movie. Unless you like that sort of thing, in which case there's enough room for interpretation for you too. Talking about Disney, I know there are people there who are trying to steer this ship around. Well, I already told you why I think removing the sequels from canon would be a bad idea. It was pointed out to me that Lucasfilm did exactly that to the expanded universe. My movie elegantly explains how this happened as well, just saying. But I have to argue here that in every company takeover there are people getting fired, departments merged and projects dropped. So if Lucasfilm were to be acquired by someone else, I still wouldn't like it if they deleted the new books, but at least I could understand it from a business standpoint. I mean, the sequel trilogy is crap, there's no way denying that. But they carry a lot more weight when it comes to most people who never even heard of the expanded universe. It's not like they retconned Superman 3 and 4 to try their luck with Returns, which is another cautionary tale in itself. What was lost was mostly comics, video games, and the first holiday special. And like I said, most of these weren't even known to non-hardcore Star Wars fans. I for one heard of it existing, but I never thought it was considered canon. Doesn't mean removing it doesn't suck, but it's not the same as retroactively pretending a whole big budget movie trilogy was a what-if scenario. Especially since your new champions are trying to sell us that Anakin wouldn't have turned to the dark side if Qui-Gon would have lived. Though I think I'll cover that in the next video.